Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Ben Wright. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Bellevue Hill Public School, Bellevue Hill, and from Victoria, St Joseph's Primary School, Orbost. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Children, please sit. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozieres, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Robert Charles Vale. Robert Charles Vale was born in 1886 in the Melbourne suburb of Fitzroy, the son of Charles and Sophia Vale. He grew up in Geelong, where he attended Chilwell State School. After leaving school, he worked as a printer and later as a miner. He lived for some time in Tasmania, which is where he married Lavinia May Rabas. The couple had 3 sons. In mid-1916, Vale enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at Geelong. He was allotted to the 29th Battalion and trained in Australia for 3 months. In September, he embarked at Melbourne on board the transport ship Commonwealth, bound for England. Arriving in Plymouth by mid-November, by the end of December, he had travelled to northern France, where he joined the other men of the 29th Battalion in the field, emerging from an extremely severe winter. At the end of February 1917, Vale was sent to the Anzac Corps School in Avouy, France, to undertake a short course, probably in the use of Lewis machine guns or bombing. He returned to his unit in mid-March 1917. During 1916, German forces had suffered heavy losses on the Somme sector of the Western Front. At the end of winter in 1917, they made a deliberate withdrawal to a strongly defended position known as the Hindenburg Line, allowing them to shorten their line and concentrate their forces. Discovering that the Germans had retreated, Australian and British forces moved forward and occupied French towns and villages, including Burmetz, which was occupied by Vale and the men of the 29th Battalion. Early on the morning of 23rd of March 1917, German forces attacked Burmetz. Vale was killed in the fighting. He was 31 years old. Robert Vale was buried at Burmetz Crossroads Cemetery in France, alongside more than 250 soldiers of the First World War. His wife had his sons' names included in the inscription on his headstone, which read, "Loving father of Robert, John and Lindsay, to memory ever dear." All 3 of his sons were younger than 4 years old. Private Robert Charles Vale is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and of sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Robert Charles Vale, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.